So now that we adjusted this class to be more reusable by dynamically accepting input values, you can do the same for the gradient container as a little exercise here. At the moment here, we got some hard-coded colors, and whilst this of course works here and is absolutely what we need for this demo app, if this would be a bigger project, a bigger app, potentially with multiple screens, we might want to be able to reuse this gradient container in different parts of the app with different colors. And at the moment that would not be possible because the colors are locked in here. Therefore, as an exercise, you should use the new knowledge you gained in the previous lecture and make gradient container more flexible by basically ensuring that when we use gradient container, we can pass our colors here as arguments in whichever way you want to gradient container, so that inside of gradient container, those color inputs are accepted, stored, and then used down there. There will be different ways of solving this, and I'll give you a short break here to pause the video and try this on your own, before then thereafter we'll solve this together. So, did you succeed? Let's now solve this together. As mentioned, there will be different ways of solving this. For example, you could accept a colors argument here, a positional one or a named one. Doesn't matter, it's up to you. And here I'll go for a named one to show you both approaches. And this colors argument, of course, should be of the same type as the colors down there. So it should be a list of colors. And we can simply copy this type here to set this as a type. Though, as you learned, we can even switch to different syntax, since we'll need to store this in a variable anyways, and add our variable here, or better, our final variable, our final data container of type list color, which could be named colors, and assign the value that's received on this named argument here to this parameter by using this .colors here. Now, if you tried to solve this with a named argument, you likely encountered this error here, which in the end tells you that the problem now is that this is optional where it actually shouldn't be. The reason for that is that named arguments by default are optional with Dart. You can solve this by adding required in front of this. Now, most likely, you simply went for a positional argument because that's easier to use, and that's what we used before, and that's of course totally fine. I just also want to show you this alternative, that if you want to use a named argument, you can do this as well, but you have to add required in front of this. And here I'm keeping this approach so that you now know also about this alternative and how you can use named arguments that are actually not optional, because by default, as mentioned, named arguments are optional. So now with that, we got our colors input. We're storing it here in this variable, and we set this to exactly the type we need. And then of course we could use that down there as a value, like this. Now I have to get rid of const here, because colors here actually is a list. Even though it's final, it's still a list, and lists by default in Dart can be edited. They can be mutated even if they're final, which is a bit more advanced and not too important right now, but for that reason you can't have const down there. And you can see this if you hover over colors down there, you in the end get that hint that you should remove the const keyword. So that's what we have to do here then. That's one way of solving this. Now I'll copy this entire widget and comment it out so that we can still see the code, but it's not active anymore. And I'll paste it in again above the commented out widget to show you an alternative approach. Because of course, instead of accepting such a list of colors, you can also accept two individual colors. You could, for example, accept two positional arguments or two named arguments, totally up to you. Color 1 and color 2. That could be the names. And both should be of type color, of course. Then we would need our variables, or again better, our final values here, which should be of type color, color 1 and color 2. And now we can use these shortcuts with the this dot notation here, just as you learned it before. Again, this would accept some input values and store them in some variables. Now the difference is that we don't accept a list of any kind of values and any amount of colors, but instead exactly 2 colors, which are both required because positional arguments by default are always required. And now we can use these colors, color 1 and color 2, down there in this list. And with that in main Dart, you can then pass your colors to gradient container. If you took the first solution with that list of colors, you would pass your list of colors here. If you took the second solution instead, you would pass your 2 colors here. So again, here I'll just quickly use deep purple as a starting point, and then use this color picker to pick some dark blue purplish color, and then copy that, add a comma, and set my second argument here, which is also a color, which is a lighter purple color, like this maybe. And with that, I'm applying these new colors to this application here, now with my reusable gradient container component. And again, this component here is reusable because I'm accepting these color values dynamically as arguments, I'm storing them, and then I'm using them in my build method. And this is a pattern, as mentioned, which you'll see a lot throughout this course, that you're building reusable widget classes.